Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. This is the Reluctant Youth Worker on Fire, and we're interviewing a lot of people that are working with students. Some are professionals, some are volunteers, some are community, some are faith-based, and some are public school. And we have Assistant Principal Mr. Tracy Clark. And Mr. Clark, and I'm going to call you Tracy as we interview.
Thank you.
We're going to talk just about your life and about where you are and where you've been. So adolescence is what we're looking at.
Okay.
In fact, tell us first though, how many children, your wife?
I'm proud to be married to Wendy Clark, who is an educator herself, and she works at Umatilla Elementary School. And I have two sons. One just graduated from Eustis High School, and the other one is a college student.
This was special last Friday night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very special. I was in charge. There was my group, the group of seniors that I had been with since they were ninth graders.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to stay with them all 4 years. And then on top of that, my son was part of that graduating class.
That's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Especially as an educator, and your students grow up that way, knowing what you do for a living, and knowing and probably looking forward to those high school days and middle school days, because when you're well, actually, I don't know if you're in middle school also. You're Eustis Middle. Did you do that for a while?
I have. Nearly half of my administrative career has been at middle school, but this last half has been primarily at the high school level.
Okay, what's the difference?
Well, at a high school, there's a lot more activity, a lot more events, and you see the students are involved in so many different things, and we try to get them to be involved. So I think that's the biggest difference. And then, of course, the different levels of maturity, but you can see a clear, definitive line of the needs, the different middle school needs as opposed to high school needs. The changes you can certainly see. Their motivation levels and all the things that can become distractions in the high school as opposed to back in middle school.
Yeah, and the great thing, and even in the smaller, of course, you deal in a microcosm of the community. I dealt with the microcosm of the community, which is just a few at a time, at the most, I think maybe 170 that we worked with. And but we divide them up because of that very reason. Middle schoolers are middle schoolers, aren't they?
Right.
And high schoolers are high schoolers.
Right.
And college people are middle schoolers.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, that's just philosophy I have. But so tell me about you when you were in middle school. I mean, middle school, high school, college. Tell me your influences there, and what that one person in each place, or maybe there's a couple, I don't know.
I would say that athletics kind of molded me as a young person. I think being involved in baseball in specific, and I played other sports and youth sports, but I learned so much from being a team member, from having a work ethic and working with other youth, whether they were my peers or whether I saw older kids that were in the baseball program. Came from a small town, so just seeing some of those older kids and how they function and how they were looked up to in the community because of their success on the baseball diamond. And I kind of looked up to some of those. And I really feel like I learned a lot from non-examples of coaching. And I do see that with a lot of the students that I work with, and when they talk about the things that they have to deal with in their lives. And I talked about breaking the mold. And I always felt like that was me. I was breaking the mold all along. Just those experiences, whether bad or good. Unfortunately, with me as a child, I think more of them were negative with the coaches that I worked with. And then in school, I had those teachers who I picked out little specific things that I think I carry with me today as a leader. But there really wasn't that one individual that I would hang on to and say that, they influenced me, back in the school days, many great ones.
Right.
But at the same time, I think I just picked up on certain things. I was kind of observant on that. and certainly the negative. Unfortunately, I dealt with that, and I think I gained a lot from seeing how things didn't work. It's kind of like with personalized learning today. I saw how different students didn't react the right way. And I think they stood out more in my mind because I didn't want to be that person. I would see, the kids that were my age or in class or on sports team making bad choices, and I just knew that wasn't me. An example of I think it's a perfect example, and I use that with kids today, is going through sports, grew up with these kids all around me in a small town, and I thought that because of that and being involved, we were really something different and divided. And when I got to high school, I saw where they started doing things with partying, smoking marijuana, and I was appalled because I thought, how could we be representative of what we have for all these years in these programs together and kind of looked at as leaders in our community of what we're doing? Now all of a sudden that's okay. So I kind of distanced myself from those types of individuals, and again, just seeing the negative and turning it into a positive for me.
And that's unusual. Well, it's not totally unusual, but it doesn't appear to be the norm. It may be the norm that there's more people that do that than the other, but nevertheless, people don't talk of it that way, and that's a great example of we're dealing with a lot of different personalities, and some are going to learn from other people's mistakes, and others are going to make the mistakes. Right,
they fall into the trap, and they don't break the mold. And so I was really eager to move on to college, and in college I really was enlightened by some professors. I went to Hillsborough Community College, and I never forget my philosophy teacher. And when he talked about pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional, I was able to relate to that and thought, wow, here I am as a young man, and I really feel that he solidified some of my beliefs in what I've done, in my observations as a child and leading up to that point, that it put me in a good place, and it helped me to think of things philosophically and how, helping others and working with others and seeing things in the right light was a benefit to me. And then as I went on to University of South Florida, I had another professor, Dr. Smith, who was in the physical education program, and just learned a great deal about life and teaching and working with youth from that man. And today I still use, folks in the program thought of him as hokey at times, but he wasn't. He was truly getting down to getting to know the people he worked with and giving them what they needed. And again, it was at a personal level. And so I really feel like I learned a lot professionally from Dr. Smith.
And when I've interviewed people, most of them, middle school, high school, they have those individuals, but you're naming names in college. And that's a big deal. That means those guys were so impactful. And the same thing with your leaving high school. I was much that way. I love the idea of going to that next level. Out of the community. There was something intriguing about that to me. So college, though, seemed to be like that big pow that you needed, that eye-opener.
It was. And before I got into the physical education part, I realized I was going to be a physical education teacher. Before that, I was going into business and going to University of South Florida for business classes. And it was my wife who said, you might want to think about this because you work so well with people. And because what happened was I volunteered to coach at the Police Athletic League in Tampa. And it was inner city, so I was working with all sorts of kids in need. And here I was, a young guy, never done anything like that before, and they kind of turned the program over to me. It was a youth football program. And that experience was like life-changing. It was great, and I saw some things that I realized. I was always a confident person, but it just, a light went off and said, yeah, this is my strength. This is really, but it was really pointed out by my wife because I was having a good time. I just enjoyed working with the kids. And then she said, well, you might want to consider this as your profession. So I did, and jointly with her, making that decision with me, it really was the greatest thing that I could do. That's when I turned to going to USF for the secondary, so I could be a teacher and a coach.
Yeah. I'll tell you some great business people, and I think it's really good that you start off with that business program. One thing I tell my personal children, my boys and my girls, you can't go wrong. Take some business classes. Even if you don't know what you're doing, just major in business.
Yeah.
Because the whole world is business, right?
That's right.
I mean, education is, but it just doesn't no matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You will be dealing in business in some way. But then you're able to transition. Guys like Tony Robbins, and people know that name, so I'll throw that one out. But Nick Unsworth, who's doing Life on Fire, helping people grow in their dreams. And he had built many businesses till he was 30. He said he went through 11 businesses, and at 30 he finally made it, which not many people make their financial goals at 30. And he's living the dream. And he said, and then I fell apart. He said, I was on my balcony alone in San Diego, and he said, I realized, now what do? He said, because it wasn't his passion. And now his passion is to help us. Well, here you are.
Right.
And what they said, if you're working your passion, the purpose you realize that you have in life, that you never work a day in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's every day is pretty much living a dream if you're seeing that you have an impact, and
people would disagree with you. They're going, "What? You're in education. You're living the dream. What's that all about?"
No, I really believe that because there were many things that I could have chosen to do with my life, and again, I credit my wife with seeing that quality in me and moving forward with it. But just seeing the light bulb go off, or with a student, or seeing that student who struggled as a ninth grader that now succeeds and walks across the stage to graduate as a senior, who many people never thought could do it. And if you're a part of that, then you're part of that success. And my heart is really tied to that. So every day is living the dream, professionally and working with those students.
And listen, I've known you for a while, and I'm the outsider looking in. I'm the volunteer. I was paid to do a type of student ministry, and the freedom I had was to be able to be on campuses with you guys and say, how can I fill in the blanks? So I got to see you in action. And the one thing I've noticed over the years is there were not many administrators with a smile on their face during the day, and you had one. Whenever I came on campus, it was a real big deal when I found teachers and administrators that had a smile on their face. I'm going, okay, I can kind of communicate with these guys now and see how they're doing, and that was great. It's a big deal, and you carried that on to each school I saw you at. I mean, you were at the middle school, then I saw you at the ninth grade center, a whole different world, and now in the high school level, and you've been consistent. That's my observation.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Doug. And just like you're an approachable person, I think we are genuine people. We can see that in one another. But kids need that. They need someone who they feel like they can approach. And I try to convey that to teachers on a regular basis, that if a student feels welcome, whether it's in your classroom, whether it's in the hallway, whether it's, just on campus anywhere, if they feel welcome, then that atmosphere is going to go a long way. It just helps that student to succeed, but they can come to you with almost anything if you're approachable. And they're not always going to do it right away. It takes time. And again, it's personalized. Every student's different and in how we work with them. But, the key is building that positive relationship. And it frustrates me at times when I go around to schools and wherever it is, whether it's on my own campus or another, and you don't see that. You don't see people greeting people. When people come up to me, whether it's a teacher or a student, for the first time in a day, and they're just hitting me with what's needed. Like, I need this from you. I stop them and I say, good morning, because again, we would like all of our, it'd be great if society.
Let's be people.
Exactly. If we approach each other first with a greeting, a hello, how's your day, and then we get down to business and take care of what we need to. I just believe that goes a long way.
That's a big deal. And you know what? There are times I've been frustrated in my life, whether it's in youth work or whatever, and I would find my head down, and I read some stuff that said, you need to keep your head up, and you need to smile. And for a while, I'd walk on campus and go, gee, people aren't smiling at me. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not smiling. And so I started turning that smile on. It doesn't matter if it's the best smile in the world. It doesn't matter if you're the prettiest or the ugliest person in the world. You put a smile on, and something changes. You greet someone with a smile, something changes.
Right.
And that's what you do.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And I try to convey that to others, through one of my favorite quotes is actions speak louder than words. I like to live by that. And when I talk to students who are struggling with behavior issues or whatever it is, I try to convey that to them, that your actions are going to speak louder than words. And if someone's walking around with a smug look on their face like they hate the world, then that's truly how you feel, and the people around you are going to feel that way as well. So we try to turn that around.
Yeah. Well, and you do that. And here you are at the end of a school year. Double pressure. Your son's graduating. You want to be a part of all those celebrations. You're a major part in getting that whole celebration function and getting those seniors through. And I don't know what all of your functions are, but I know all you guys have to work together in the administration area on graduation. No matter what your other responsibilities are, graduation's king, at the end of school. Tell me, let's go back though. Let's go back to, is it Pop Warner that you coached at? What was it?
It was Police Athletic League.
Police
Athletic League. And we joined with Tampa Bay Youth Football, which was a huge organization back then. We started small. Police Athletic League had their own little organization of football, and then that wasn't quite big enough for where we were growing. After a couple years I was involved in it, we joined Tampa Bay Youth Football League, which was huge. Like I said, they have a Super Bowl and everything.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty neat because that's what I played youth football in. Got to play in Tampa Bay Youth Football League. It was a small organization that grew into something very nice.
Yeah.
And so I got to see a lot of the kids grow from 8-year-olds up to, getting prepared for high school, because I worked with them for 5 years.
Well, in 5 years, and my understanding, it was for me, 5 years is like the golden year, year 5. All of a sudden, students are coming back going, hey, when I first 5 years ago, you said this, you did this, thank you.
Right.
And you might have gotten your first thank you. Do you remember anything like that happening?
In so many ways. They were struggling youth, and came from broken homes, and I would take them from their home to practice, back from practice to home, and just see the environment and the struggles that were going on. And the biggest rewards that I found were when they went on and played in high school, and we would meet up here and there, because what happened was I was in Tampa finishing my degree and coaching and doing everything, and my teaching job took me to Hernando County, which was quite a ways from Tampa. So it was difficult to stay in touch. But still to this day, I have a parent who calls, and at least twice a year, but every Christmas she calls and has to stay in touch with my family because of the value. I was pretty much like a father to her child.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of staying in touch over the years. Unfortunately, he lost his life. And, that's another whole side story. And she, wanted me to do the eulogy and, different things like that. And so seeing the impact that you had on those individuals.
You gave him a lot of good years, though, whatever those years were. And she saw that.
Right. And carried that. This is decades.
Anybody, right, exactly. Anybody that's going to stay in touch like that, that's pure life-changing impact.
Absolutely. So I know, how much those years meant to not only me, but to several of the individuals that I got to work with.
Yeah, and what we're talking to volunteers here as well as full-time workers, and so a lot of times those volunteer years are the most valuable years. The average volunteer may last somewhere from a year to 2 years, but 5 years.
Right. And that's strictly
you were beyond that, weren't you?
That's strictly what I was, a volunteer. I answered an ad in the newspaper because, as I stated, I was into sports, love sports, and a sports injury kind of stopped that for me in high school, where I couldn't continue to play anymore. But then my passion was still there, so I turned that into coaching. But saw the ad in the newspaper, just wow, okay, this sounds pretty neat. I'll go over and talk to them. It was a police athletic league looking for a football coach. And I thought I was going to go and meet with someone and go and volunteer and help work with a staff of people. And the corporal met with me and said, okay, yeah, great, you're our guy. When do you want to start practice? And I said, well, I'll meet with the head coach and we'll find. He says, you are the head coach. Okay, well, who was the coach last year and that I can talk to and see what the schedule was and who's on the staff? He goes, no, you are the head coach. Tell me when you want to practice. So I was kind of left. And you talk about leadership skills, I had to figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So volunteer, that changed my life. That moment changed my life, because then I had to figure things out, and I really was on my own. But I was able to ask questions of, another worker at the Police Athletic League, and gain a little bit of knowledge. And they sent me to the Boys and Girls Club over in Tampa.
Yeah,
off of Sly Avenue in Tampa. Went over there, met with those folks, and said. And actually, I didn't have a football team either. I didn't have any players. But I talked to folks there. Next thing I know, I have 6 or 8 kids ready to play football, and it grew into a full football team.
Wow.
But quite an experience as a volunteer.
Well, you said a word too. No, were you going to?
No, and then from there, I was able to get other volunteers, people that I knew, to come in and be my assistant coaches to a program that we were basically starting. So,
but they believed in you, and that's the thing about. You said a word, and I believe the reason that your friends or people that you knew before, whether close friends or not, came to help you is because you brought value to their life somewhere. The big word in business development, friendship development, community development these days is value. They like to throw out that word. But that is a big word, because that's what you did naturally. Whether it was natural or not, whether it was you built on that inside on purpose. Because why would you want to come volunteer with you for a football team that's not even fully developed?
Right.
You've already put value into these people. And so tell me about value. How you've already told us some things that you've already told teachers, different things about value. But how can we every day bring, or I don't say every day, just say what you want to say about value and how we get that into people. Is there a way?
And I think if you live by it, you're an example, and you're a role model. Again, it goes back to actions speak louder than words. Because Doug, you could say something to me, but I'm not going to truly value what you say until you demonstrate to me that you're genuine about it, and that's how you live your life.
Yeah.
And I think those friendships that I did develop, and growing up. And then those folks who would value me as a friend and would go to bat for me, it's because they knew that's how I was, that I was there for them. And I think it went with work ethic as well. There can be folks who are who basically just lumber along and they don't really get a lot accomplished. And I don't think that I was that guy. I think I was the guy who always wanted to succeed, and people knew that about me. So if we want to rally around people like that, then we do. And if we don't want to do that, we don't. And unfortunately, too many people make that choice of, they're going to take the easy route as opposed to, let's meet this head on and go through and handle it.
You know what I found is there's no easy route. When you try to take the easy route, that makes it the harder route.
Very, very true.
I've seen some single moms in the past few years that have made something of themselves, single dads. The interesting thing was all of them say, I stopped taking the easy route. I decided that we would always take the hard route first. Jerry Rice, I always refer to Jerry Rice because I love seeing him play.
Yeah.
And then he had that combination with Joe Montana. But the story of Jerry that I didn't realize years ago, I found out, in fact, read it in John Maxwell, one of his books. We talked about Maxwell, and you've got one of those books. Jerry was going to quit early one day when he was in football practice in high school. They're running the hill. Every city there must be a hill.
Find one.
That's right. We're going to find a hill because those guys are going to run up it. And he said we had 20 suicides or something like that. It was a huge number. And he said, I saw an opportunity to sneak into the locker room and go ahead and leave. He said, and I was going that way, and this voice inside my head said, if you do this, you'll always do this. Yeah. He said, I turned myself around, I ran the hill. He was known for, in the pros, to never be an off season, and that he would run this 2.5 mile hill in San Francisco. So there's no shortcuts.
Yeah, well, I think part of that too. Don't you think Jerry Rice is a person? Not only he doesn't want to let himself down, but he doesn't want to let the people around him down. And when you're a teammate, and that's where I go back to talking about my youth sports and the experiences that I had. There's no way I would ever want to let my teammates down. And Jerry Rice, to me, is the epitome of that. Yeah. So if you do start to turn down and try to take the easy route, what example are you representing to those folks around you? It's not a good one.
And so have you seen some people that used to just quit, give up, try to easy route? Have you seen any of those people turn around and go, you know what, I'm done with that?
I have. In fact, we had some turnaround students that I recommend their story be shared with the newspaper through our district, and
Wow.
because they were asking about some of those success stories or our high achievers. And I went directly to the success stories because I just love those stories. When we have a freshman come in and they've been dealt a tough deck of cards and they really have to struggle and turn things around. Their attitude, if you didn't know that they had these issues going on, you'd think, well, they just don't care, whatever. But when you actually find out the reasons why they appear to not care on the outside, they're dealing with a lot. But then these same individuals work through the adversity. They might have struggled, whether it's academically or with behavior issues. By the time they got to juniors, they've figured it out, they've turned it around, and then they've, graduated in success, and they're going to go on. And, that was just a bump in the road in the big scheme of things. But while they were going through it, very significant.
Those are negatives speak louder than positives in our life. And when we get hit, all the good can disappear in our minds. And you're dealing with how many students here at this school?
Well, at the main campus, just under 1,000. And between the two, we're just under 1,300.
Yeah. So 1,300 lives, not counting your teachers, with 1,300 different sets of emotions, with 1,300 different families coming together, and you guys have to organize that.
It's a tall task.
And make it a good thing.
It's a challenge, and that's if you enjoy challenge, then this is the lifestyle for you. So
yeah, and you do. That's obvious. Tell me how proud you are of your boys.
My two sons. Oh, that incredibly so. I used to say for years, that once I became a father, that that's what I live for. And my wife and I both have shared that, and that's a good thing because it's been healthy for us and our family. That we both agree on that. We both have the same beliefs, and our children were everything for us, and still are today. You make a lot of sacrifices, and but we're both thankful that we had each other to do that with.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else you want to say to people, though, in volunteers or in full-time youth work, whether it's public school, faith-based, or churches, whatever?
You know what? It's
Boys and girls clubs.
Right. Anything that you can do to get involved, you're going to find a lot, within yourself. You find a lot of things that will help you to, to grow and in seeing the impact that you have on the individuals you work with. So any experience you can gain through volunteering and helping others, it's going to turn out to be a huge reward for you in your future.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.